Hello and welcome to what is going to be a mammoth video. I have finally written up the Chronicles of Ruin campaign in a format that I am happy with, to be able to present to you the missions that we are doing, all the way from the beginning of the Warhammer 40,000 universe to the current timeline. Well, I say current timeline, we've only written up to Era Indomitus, so Gulliman has just arrived at the very end of these missions that we're doing here, so bear that in mind. But I do want this, and this is another thing to sort of reference at the moment. I think I referenced it in the last video. I do want this to be the Magnum Opus of campaigns. I want this to be the campaign that we do for the next 5-10 years, okay? The plan is not all game sizes are going to be the same, not all army lists are going to be the same. We're going to be using everything we've got in the collection, and we're starting we're starting to sort of take videos and pictures of games to be able to feed them into this campaign. So it is the Chronicles of Ruin campaign, and I'm really excited to start going through the missions with you. So let's get started. The first mission is the War in Heaven Part 1. Now, this game already took place. We have put that one up on the YouTube channel already. We did that more out of excitement, just to get something put up and put out there. That's been out for a couple of months now. We have also done some addendum videos, like before and afters and sort of thing. That will happen, okay? There will be, each one of these will be a game of varying scale. We could even have games of like 250 points for like a kill team style game, but I'll come on to that later. And yeah, this game has already happened, and we had a lot of fun shooting it. We have also done, so for each of these missions, I probably should have said this at the intro, at the very beginning, each of these missions do have, on my notes here, I have a note as to what I'm wanting from the game in a sense of lore, or sort of a setup sentence. I've done one for each of them. Sometimes I might read them, sometimes I might just use it to talk and to actually create this video. They were sort of designed as a prompt for myself, with this video having so much content. I don't want to spoil it, because if I spoil it and tell you how many missions I've written, you might just stop watching the video right now and think, well, actually you can see the time of the video when it's finished recording, so actually you probably will be able to recognize that this is going to be a long one. So obviously we're on the War of Heaven Part 1. The next one is War of Heaven Part 2. This one is where the Old One's creation, so the Eldar and the Orcs, are versing the Necrons. It's a union of cunning and brutality that marks the dawn of conflict in the galaxy. Okay, the Eldar and the Orcs, or Grorks, I think they're called at that point. It's going to be a nice way of using both the Eldar and the Orc collections we've got, and then Minion will be using Necrons that he's got, maybe alongside the Dynasty that I've got as well, to bolster out his forces. But yeah, that's the plan. Part 3 is then the Necrons have gone to sleep. They've managed to find tomb worlds to get themselves all settled down, bed down for the long nap kind of thing. And they sort of disappear a little bit. They sort of move away from the Eldar conflict, and then the Eldar and Orcs are left. And you know what the Orcs are like? They want to fight everything and anything. So we decided to have like an Eldar versus Orcs game, where we might have something in relation to psychic powers, that there's like an extra d6, or there's extra easier to cast magical powers, psychic powers, because it's obviously very early in the universe or the galaxy's history, so the warp shenanigans perhaps aren't as difficult, or it's a bit more fluid between reality and the warp. That being said, we are then having the Necrons come back for a game to fight against just Catan. We're thinking of using, things like the Shard of the Void Dragon, the Shard of the Deceiver, the Shard of the Nightbringer, and then a Transcendent Catan as well, maybe. Not in the Tesseract, but I don't know, actually. That's perhaps not a good way to go with that. We do have the plans for that to be a big game that we're going to be having, because I think it would be cool to have all of them on the table. And depending on whether or not we get any previews, this is recorded before the preview event. I think that one's on Saturday, is it the 8th of November? I don't have any way of checking. But yeah, I think it's on a Saturday. They revealed that there's some Warhammer stuff, Warhammer 40k stuff, but I don't think it will be the Deceiver as a plastic model. We do know about the Nightbringer being a new plastic model, so we might wait until then, just so that we can use that really nice model. Finally, for the War in Heaven, we've got part 5. It's sort of designed to be sort of when the Necrons and Eldar have fought, they've awoken things in the warp that they just don't understand. The sentence that I've got here, I do quite like this one, so I will read this. In the silence after the War in Heaven, the Eldar and the remnants of the Necrons found themselves facing a new terror. Demons, born of the warp, a power neither race could comprehend nor hoped to truly destroy. Which I just think sounds really cool. It'll be a nice way to tie off the War in Heaven. They've sort of fought each other so much that then it's caused the demons to be sort of coming into reality for the first time. Obviously, there probably won't be any Slaanesh demons because, well, spoiler alert, we might have that in later. Men of Iron Rebellion being next, so we're after the War in Heaven now. We wanted to feature a little bit of like a Men in Iron versus humanity. Some of these are quite ambiguous with the names on purpose, so please do bear that in mind. We have the plan of having the Men of Iron versus humanity as a little game, whether or not we do 500 points of like Cadian Shock Troopers, Death Corps of Krieg, sort of human models representing, nothing too big, but just representing sort of human soldiers with a gun, nothing too advanced, versus Men of Iron, this AI, artificial intelligence that's grown beyond any reckoning that we're currently at in the real world. The Men of Iron models that we were thinking of was the new Votan models, that 3 in a pack. I want to call them Steeljacks, but I don't think they are. But the Men of Iron models that we're wanting to use are probably going to be those. So we'll probably get sort of a couple of packs of those and just have it as though they're really powerful. Almost give them like a Custodes profile for 7th edition, and then have humanity trying to take down these Men of Iron artificial intelligence, or abominable intelligence. So yeah, Men of Iron Rebellion next. From the spoiler alert, we do have the birth of Slaanesh. We did want to include this because we thought it would be a lot of fun to have the Eldari of excess causing the birth of She Who Thirsts. I thought we could then have the fracturing of the Eldar and have the Eldar and the Dark Eldar respectively afterwards. And the sentence that I wrote for this one is: the unchecked psychic excess of the Eldar birthed the new god Slaanesh, whose awakening devastated the galaxy and shattered the civilization, dividing the survivors into those who fled to the stars and those who embraced the darkness within. So, pretty cool sort of end goal for after this game. So have the Eldar with Dark Eldar models and Eldar models in the game, to represent those two halves of the whole versus Slaanesh demons. I thought it would be quite a fun one to do. So the next two are, we're jumping back to sort of the Imperium and humanity. We then have the Age of Strife, the Isolation Wars. So we're wanting some of the Isolation Wars to come in, where humanity are facing the terrors of the galaxy that's a little bit unknown to them. Things like Dark Eldar will be the first one. We're wanting them to sort of, almost be going out to the stars and being attacked either on void ships, or they make planetfall somewhere and it looks like an empty planet, there's no life signs or anything, but then all of a sudden out of the shadows jump enemies such as the Dark Eldar. Next, we want humanity versus Eldar for part 2 of the Isolation Wars. That will just allow us to have a bit of fun with, using a bit more of a Xenos style of gameplay. I love using the Eldar, so having having Eldar in there as much as possible would be great. Again, keeping the humanity. It might become a little bit repetitive. It might become sort of, this is the humanity list that we're just going to keep taking, almost like each fleet has its own boarding or landing party, and it's always the same. It's 50 guardsmen and a commissar with a couple of scout sentinels or something, just to sort of have the landing party versus then an Eldar threat that's already on the planet. Or if we do like a Zone Mortalis game, we could do something with like the Eldar boarding into a human void ship or something, or rocket ship. I don't know if there would be void ships at that point. Next, we were then having the orcs, because yes, we want humans to face orcs for the first time and have an epic battle of that. When humanity first encountered the orcs, they faced a foe unlike any they had known, a brutal, unrelenting species that revealed just how savage and unpredictable life in the galaxy had become. We think that would be an awesome one to have, have humans with not much technology versus orcs that's just the savagery of a great warg. We think that would be a lot of fun to play. After that, we've then got part 4 of the Isolation Wars, which is humanity versus demons, the first time that humans encounter demons in the campaign, sort of an enemy they don't truly understand. Thinking more like in, it's either Horus Rising, False Gods, where I think it's Euphrates Keeler and Kirill Sinderman are looking at, is it the Lectitio Divinitatis maybe at that point? But they're looking in a book and a demon appears, and Euphrates Keeler uses the Aquila in her hand and burns her hand with the power of stopping this demon from entering real space. Something like that we thought was quite cool. So this one might be a really small kill team style game. And when I say kill team game, I don't mean using kill team rules. We don't know the rules of the current edition. What we will do is we will do sort of 500 points, and we'll do each model as its own unit, and that's it. So it'll be, you don't have to stay in unit coherency, things like that, and we'll play on like a little Zone Mortalis board, because we've got the original Zone Mortalis Forge World tiles that need to get some use. We do also have some of the plastic Games Workshop ones, so we could maybe do it sort of like a Necromunda-y vibe, because those Zone Mortalis tiles from Games Workshop are painted up like Necromunda style. Okay. After this, we have another alien or Xenos species. This one was put in because Minion wanted it to be featured. I wasn't sure that it was this old. I thought it was a newer alien species or Xenos species, but we go humanity versus Votan. So yeah, I think humanity versus Votan will be quite a fun one to do. It will be sort of humans versus almost abhumans. They don't understand that there's different variations of humans, because I suppose that's all Votan really were at one point, maybe back in the early days. But things like Ogrins and Bulgrins could be featured on the Votan side. We thought that might be a fun way to almost have it as humanity versus abhumanity, but Votan being far more advanced than the humans that they're fighting against. And then finally, we thought we'd wrap up the Isolation Wars with a non-human game, with the use of Eldar versus demons. The reason we chose this was because we thought that the Eldar could perhaps be following humans around, or sort of, almost watching over humans, just to make sure that whatever they're doing, it's not causing too much sort of unrest in the galaxy. Conquering the planets, yeah, okay, the Eldar perhaps wouldn't like that as much, but they're sort of making sure that they're not actually adding to this demonic instability incursion of demons coming through from the warp, and all of a sudden the Eldar have found, perhaps pockets of demonhood and demon incursions that they then have to eradicate. So that's why we thought end the Isolation Wars, end the Age of Strife with Eldar versus demons. Plus it means that the collector who has the most demons in our crew, the Jarl, he might be able to give me a run for my money with my 7th edition Eldar list. Not that I would take perhaps too many Wraith Knights in this case. Then we jump to the Unification Wars part 1, We've got Thunder Warriors versus Adeptus Astartes. The reason we've got Thunder Warriors in there is because we wanted a little game just to show, that the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, do actually end up taking over from the Thunder Warriors as the Emperor's legion of warriors or super soldiers to go and claim the galaxy. We've also got some third-party models for Thunder Warriors, which I got from, I can't remember exactly where. So I think we've got them in a box somewhere, and they need painting. So I'll get them painted up, and the Primarch we are going to use as Ushuran, and I think we'll probably have Valdor leading the Adeptus Astartes, based on his book, being that the story of bringing the Terror into compliance. Well, I say compliance, getting rid of the Thunder Warrior threat, shall we say. And then we decided that the second part of the Unification Wars would be Custodes versus Adeptus Astartes. We thought it'd just be a little bit of fun. It could be a blood game, or it could be something that like Space Marines have just gone a little bit too far, got a little bit too feral or something. There's plenty of opportunity, but we were thinking sort of a blood game, one of the first blood games for the Custodes to get involved with would have been quite a nice little way of having this. Just having a fun game of Custodes versus Space Marines. Okay, next we thought we will go. We're starting with the Great Crusade. Okay, so this is where it gets very interesting. Okay, we are making good time, I guess. This, as I say, is going to be a longer video. But the Great Crusade. So we're starting with Ultramarines versus Eldar. I did put Adeptus Astartes, but then decided the Legion that we're going to use at this point underneath, just because it will then give us use out of all the Legion models that we've got. We might use Heresy, or we probably will use Heresy models that we've got, or Firstborn Marine models that we've got, just to sort of try and keep it lore accurate. Things like Primaris we're going to try and start filtering in when Primaris happens. That being said, things like characters though, so like the Marneus Calgar miniature, we've got the new one, we don't have the old one, so we're going to use the new one if ever Calgar appears. So we're just going to have to sort of take some artistic license here and there on those sort of things. But anyway, no, Great Crusade. So the first time it's the Space Marines versus the Eldar, which will be a lot of fun. Ultramarines, having Guilliman as well as a Primarch will be quite fun. He won't have the Emperor's Sword, but it'll be a fun game to play. We then have Blood Angels versus Demons, the first time that the Blood Angels encounter demons. The Blood Angels first faced the demons of Khorne, a brutal clash that forced them to confront the fine line between righteous fury and damnation. That'll be a really cool matchup to have. Maybe we have something like a Cabanda turn up. I don't know, we'll have to see. A lot of this is still up in the air as to what we'll take, and it will change. I'll say things now that will probably change, but it'll be a lot of fun to sort of have what I'm thinking come into reality would be the aim here. We then jump back to part 3 with Ultramarines versus Orcs. We did consider using things like Space Wolves or Dark Angels at this point, but we think using Ultramarines will be a lot of fun because they are going to get a lot of use throughout this campaign. Ultramarines are definitely the poster boy of Warhammer 40k, and going later into the campaign, Ultramarines will get a lot of use as well. So we thought we'll use them and get use out of models that we've bought and that we've painted and spent time on. Okay, so Ultramarines versus Orcs, another amazing clash up, a classic classic mashup. I don't know. Yeah, classic game that will be. We then have Dark Angels versus Tyranids. This was based purely on something like the Beasts of Caliban, almost. Obviously, we know they're not Tyranids, but they're good monster hunters. So we thought maybe we'll do like a big Tyranid Dark Angels game and play, with some of the big Gribblies from the Tyranids line. Then we thought back to Ultramarines for the Dark Eldar this time. You know, they've fought the Eldar, so now let's get them fighting the Dark Eldar. It could be a raiding party of Dark Eldar, or it could be, you know, an attack on Commorragh or something like that. We've got plenty of options to have a look at, and we have time to make sure that things are lore accurate as well, but we are going to take some artistic license. Next, we then have Blood Angels versus Necrons. This is based purely on that amazing board at Warhammer World. If you live nearby or if you've visited Warhammer World, you'll know which one I'm talking about. It's the snow one, where the Blood Angels are attacking a Necron tomb world, and we're definitely very interested in having a Blood Angels Necron mashup here, with the models that we've got in our collections. Then we thought Ultramarines versus Humanity. Now, if I read my sentence for this so that you can understand where this was coming from. So, as the Ultramarines advanced through the stars, their first encounters with scattered remnants of humanity were marked by hope and by sorrow. Reunions that revealed how far mankind had fallen and how much there was yet to restore. You know, we thought maybe the human colonists from one of the original Isolation Wars game has sort of fallen to chaos or demonic incursion, or even something like a gene stealer effect or something, because then that leads very nicely to the Dark Angels versus gene stealer cults. Maybe they land on a planet as well, and this one has fallen to the gene stealer cults. Maybe the other one's a demonic one, you know, so almost like a chaos worshipping cult, and then this one's a gene stealer cult. We thought that would be quite fun, just so that you can see that the Great Crusade wasn't all plain sailing. Worlds were brought into compliance, but then had to be reassaulted to be able to bring them back into compliance again, which is all about what's happening at the start of Horus Rising. You know, they have to go out on the expeditions and bring planets back into compliance. The Great Crusade Part 9, so this one will be Ultramarines versus Votann. We've got to get use out of the models, you know, I want to get as much use out of things like the Votann models as possible. So another instance of them appearing in the galaxy. We thought it'd be quite fun to have, you know, these abhumans fighting against Ultramarines, but they have really advanced weaponry, and perhaps the Ultramarines struggle to comprehend what's going on until it's too late, and all of a sudden, you know, the Votann have managed to sort of take out key people or got grudges against Ultramarines and things like that. When the Votann start featuring later, after sort of Era Indomitus, when they feature a lot more, we will be keeping track of grudges across games. We think it'd be quite fun to have, you know, like this network of grudges that have been developed over games and games and games that then make it into the way that the Votann are after certain characters from certain armies. We thought that'd be quite a fun way of playing with the Votann. Plus, I think Minion would love to just keep a book of grudges, another book of grudges. I think he's got about 6 on the go at the moment. Next, we then thought we'd got to get some use out of one of my favourite legions, which do unfortunately become traitor legion through the Horus Heresy, but the Iron Warriors. It's an army that's been sitting in a box doing nothing for quite a while, so it would be quite good to get some use out of the Iron Warriors. I also then said to Minion, you know, what would be a good adversary for that? And you know what Minion's like, his first response was Mechanicum, because then he can get use out of his Mechanicum models earlier on, which is absolutely brilliant, because it would be great to have the Iron Warriors versus Mechanicum. Next, we thought again something else, an Imperial Fist versus Humanity, you know, another colony that might have fallen to chaos, or that might just be on the brink of worshipping something that's perhaps, you know, not what the Imperium, part of the Imperial truth, or the decrees of the Imperium. Maybe the High Lord has fallen or something, like Jugendtember. I think it's Jugendtember from False Gods. I think he's the High Lord that oversaw the planet or the moon or something of Davin, and then ended up stabbing. It's been a while since I need to reread that. I think it's about a year since I reread some of the Horus Heresy books. So after that, we then got Blood Angels versus Demons again. Okay, we're doing a repeat game, but this one might be something a little bit later on, where there's, you know, perhaps more big demon stuff, or, you know, there's starting to be a little bit more going on, or the Blood Angels, we could do like a smaller sort of game or a kill team game, so repeat games don't necessarily mean repeat lists for the armies as well. Then I thought, we need to get use out of even things that perhaps I wouldn't want us to use much. Word Bearers are one of the worst. In fact, I think they are the worst legion out there. Let me know in the comments if you agree, if you've made it this far. Obviously, it's a very long video. I don't expect many people will make it this far. But we wanted the Word Bearers still loyal at this time against humanity. Maybe they land on a planet and the humans have fallen to chaos, and the Word Bearers purge them and bring the planet back into compliance. But then, ultimately, as we all know, the Word Bearers fall themselves, which then leads quite nicely to Custodes versus Word Bearers. We wanted the planet where the Emperor basically scorns Lorgar in front of his legion and makes them all kneel to him, when he says that he's not a god and, you're raising false idols. So we thought Custodes versus Word Bearers would be an excellent game to have here. So the first, marking the end of the Great Crusade as a full loyalist force, and perhaps this is where the Word Bearers... In fact, I think I wrote something quite good here. So on the planet, the Word Bearers brought conquest and faith in equal measure, raising monuments to the Emperor not as their lord but as their god, and in doing so, sowing the seeds of their damnation. I just thought that'd be quite a cool way to start the Horus Heresy setup, which I will talk about soon. So next, we've then got Adeptus Astarte. We've got Dark Angels versus Eldar for the Great Crusade Part 15. We wanted to, I wanted to use the Dark Angels again, whether Minion or I use it. Versus the Eldar, I thought it'd be quite fun to have another game against the Eldar to see how the Dark Angels do. We've had the Ultramarines earlier, but let's see how the Dark Angels do. Okay, so we've then got the final bit before the Heresy. We have the Ullanor Crusade. So we have Lunar Wolves, Custodes and Mechanicum versus the Orcs. Obviously we don't have an Emperor model who was on the field at Ullanor fighting with Horus, but we do have a Horus painted up as a Lunar Wolf, as he should have been. I called it to the Jarl, I said it is Horus as he should have been. A bit like Gandalf as Saruman as he should have been. So we've got some Lunar Wolves as well, because they were one of the best loyalist legions, or best legions, before they just ended. We've still got the greatest Marine to ever live was as a Lunar Wolf through and through. I can almost hear the Jarl shouting at me for saying that on record, but we know that Loken is the greatest Marine to ever live, and he was Lunar Wolf. He is exactly what a Space Marine should have been. Okay, so that is the end of the Chronicles of Ruin campaign up to the Horus Heresy. Now we are going to skip the Horus Heresy and the Siege of Terra for this campaign, so there won't be any Horus Heresy games or the Siege of Terra games. Now the reason for that is because we are wanting to write that as part of a Horus Heresy campaign, but Minion and I, and I've mentioned this before, I won't go into too much detail, Minion and I do not think the Heresy rule set is something that is worthy of us, one, learning, and two, spending a lot of time playing at the moment. We just think it's in a place where it needs a bit of improvement, and evidently Games Workshop agree, because we saw that there was quite a few FAQ things dropped a couple of days ago for an edition that came out earlier this year, or sort of, what we're in November, so October, September, August, sort of 4 months ago. So it just speaks volumes, and it just makes us less interested in playing the Horus Heresy as it is at the moment. So we might jump back to it, we should be jumping back to it on an edition where we feel like it's more suited for what we're wanting to play. So that being said, we are then going to jump after the Ullanor Crusade to the Scouring. Here we have the Imperial Fist versus the Sons of Horus, a classic mashup, something that I definitely wanted to include. I wanted to have the poster boys of Horus Heresy 2 versus the other poster boys, but I also wanted that classic mashup. We've got We've got lots of Imperial Fist models in the studio, and I know the Jarl has a huge Sons of... In fact, it might even be the world's largest Sons of Horus collection as well, because he is a Sons of Horus fan. So we thought that would be a really cool one to have. We then thought next we'll have Custodes versus Word Bearers. This should then fall quite nicely for having new, hopefully plastic models that are coming out. Games Workshop have been teasing that there's been perhaps new Custodes models coming. As I say, the Warhammer preview did say it had Heresy reveals in. It'd be nice if we do get some plastic Custodes models. That being said, you've seen the video on the channel, the world's largest Custodes collection already. I don't need more Custodes, whether they're plastic or not. So I might not buy much, if anything, from that lineup. It'd be nice to have, but it's not a need to have, and the money has to be spent on sensible things at the moment. Next, Dark Angels versus Death Guard. We thought we'll finish off the Astronomicon battle where we had Typhus and Corswain battling it out. We thought that would be quite a cool one to have in the scouring, so we've got that one added in. Perhaps I'll jump over a couple of these a little bit, so we're going to have plenty of content on them down the line, and I'm just conscious how far into the video we already are. Imperial Vis versus Iron Warriors. Right, this one actually I just said I'm going to sort of try and speed it up a little bit. This one I'm going to focus on a little bit because it's the Iron Cage. We want to do the Iron Cage where, Dawn and the Imperial Fists assault the Iron Warriors fortress that's in the shape of a Chaos Star, and basically it's not, I would say a war of attrition, but it isn't really. It's just a massacre of Imperial Fists. It's one of those ones where Dawn's pride will not let him realise that he's been suckered into this trap, and he just keeps going and going and going, and as a result the Imperial Fist Legion isn't a legion anymore, and it barely is a chapter. So we thought that would be a really fun one to have. We then thought another classic mashup, Ultramarines versus Demons and Word Bearers. We thought that would be a really fun one to have, sort of a Vengeance for Calth kind of game. Astra Militarum versus Renegade Guardsmen for part 6 of the Scouring. We wanted to see the human side of it as well. We want to have things like tank companies fighting against Renegade Guardsmen, and Chaos Predators and Chaos Tanks and things like that. We've got some Chaosy bits lying around, so it'd be nice to have a game of that. Scouring Part 7, we've left this one purposefully ambiguous, just so that it allows us to take whatever we fancy for the Imperium, because if we take something that's, specifically stated here, it means that then maybe we're stuck down the line. It would be nice to have, a bit of Ultramarines, bit of Grey Knights, bit of Titans, bit of Mechanicus, versus Chaos in its entirety. Again, Demons, Black Legion, not Black Legion, Demons, Chaos Space Marines and things like that. The reason I also left it ambiguous is because the Scouring books have not been written yet, I don't think, or they've not been released. So there's part of me that's like, well, let's just wait for those to come out before we commit to exactly which armies are involved in the final Scouring mission. Then we're going to jump a little bit. This might jump around a little bit timeline-wise. We're going to have the Black Crusades, and we're going to do 1 to 12 Black Crusades, all as one hit. Okay, so we're going to keep going now through the Black Crusades. They don't all happen at the same time, or perhaps without other things happening in between, but there's a reason for it. We want to show Abaddon's rise through the ranks and to go into the detail of how he brings together all the Chaos warbands. And we thought that it would be really cool narratively to have Black Crusade games sort of 1 to 12, with 12 being a 3-parter, having those sort of develop through the timeline. We thought would be quite cool. So we've got Black Crusade 1, where he's fighting the Demon Primarchs and some of their sons. So we'll have small forces of Death Guard, Emperor's Children, Thousand Sons, and I'm blanking. I'm drawing a blank. Death Guard, Thousand Sons, Emperor's Children, and World Eaters, of course. We've got all 4 of the Demon Primarchs models in plastic, very nice models, so get some use out of them and have Abaddon fighting against them to try and claim the mantle of War Master. Not that I think any of the Demon Primarchs wanted it, but I think he just wanted to try and bring them into compliance to prove that he was the ultimate champion of chaos. Black Crusade 2, we wanted to then put in the custom chapter. We wanted the Defenders of the Neverpath to be featured. We don't know how big this is going to be, based on the fact that Defenders of the Neverpath, yeah, they're a custom chapter. Their lore is a little bit... I've written it, and I've read it to Minion, and maybe I'll do a video where I read the story that I've written. But I've written it in... I wrote it down by hand, just because I really wanted it to be a labour of love, and I want not to suffer for my craft, but I wanted to put the effort in, because to me it's going to be a worth it project. And Custodes, we thought that would be quite a fun one. You know, these will all be snapshots of the Black Crusades. You know, there's not going to be an overarching, this is the main villain. We're going to keep it ambiguous, just so that we're not breaking too many things lore wise, because obviously I don't want to trigger people out there by doing the wrong thing, or by misquoting who is doing what at what point. Okay, so Black Crusade 3, we'll have the Black Legion versus Chaos Warbands. Again, Abaddon's trying to consolidate power. He's trying to take back any of the Chaos remnants that have fled or gone to different places. You know, things like Night Lords, things like World Eater Berserkers, things that, you know, we've got really nice models of in the collections that we want to get use out of. So I thought that'd be quite a fun Black Crusade, in quotation, marks to do. We then thought Black Legion versus Sisters of Battle. It'd be really cool to get use out of some of the models that we've got from when Sisters of Battle were released in plastic. That'd be really nice to have, and it will also set up the stage nicely for later on in the campaign, having some of the Sisters of Battle, you know, painted and ready to go. We then got Black Crusade 5, so Black Legion and Dark Mech. Who's the natural antagonist to the Dark Mech? It's definitely Light Mechanicus. It's the normal Mechanicus models. Excuse me. So we thought we'll make sure. Sorry, I've got the hiccups all of a sudden. We'll make sure that we get some use out of some Dark Mech. Hopefully by this point, maybe the Dark Mech models might exist a little bit more, other than just Vashtor. We know we've got the Seraptech construct things for Legions Imperialis, so if they ever were released in 28mm scale, I know for a fact that Minion would be wanting some. So Black Crusade 6, we then wanted Black Legion versus Necrons. This one, in fact, we were talking about having something where maybe it attacks the Necrons, and that's where the Blackstone Fortress it comes from. I can't exactly remember in the lore where it comes from, so we thought that might be a nice little way of having the Blackstone Fortress be sort of revealed, or have like a Zone Mortalis style game for this one. I don't know, we'll have to see, because we've now got the Tomb World terrain as well, that's out with the dormant Necrons in the walls and things like that, which I just think would be a really cool game to play. We then got Black Crusade 7, where we've got Space Wolves and Dark Angels versus the Black Legion. Putting aside their differences for a change, the Space Wolves and the Dark Angels rally together because they realise that the threat of Abaddon and this new Black Legion perhaps is a little bit too much just to ignore. We then went back to Black Legion versus Chaos Warbands. Maybe it's a bit of a bigger game or smaller than the previous one. So again, lists won't be the same, but it will be, you know, narratively quite a nice way of, you know, Abaddon's building up to the bigger crusades that he's doing, and getting more Chaos Warbands under his control would be obviously beneficial to him. We then thought some, you know, classic matchups again with Mechanicus and Ultramarines fighting against the Black Legion. We all know what happens in Black Crusade number 13, so we thought prepping for that might be a really cool way of having these two armies fighting the Black Legion. Again, basically what I've just said, having Astra Militarum fighting the Black Legion will be excellent. It'll be a really nice way to set up the Black Crusades that are happening later on, especially when we're splitting them into multiple parts. We then thought Black Crusade number 11 would be a really cool way to have some Blood Angels, specifically things like Sanguinary Guard might be really cool to use, because we've got 50 of the original Sanguinary Guard, because I am a staunch believer that the new Primaris Sanguinary Guard are not Sanguinary Guard. To me, they look really nice as Vanguard veterans or something like that, but they are not Sanguinary Guard, as described in many books in the Horus Heresy and in Warhammer 40k, and many artworks that depict them with these beautiful Baroque wings, and the Primaris ones just have little wing insignias to to match Dante. Just doesn't sit right with me, so they're not Sanguinary Guard. We will be using 50 of the original Sanguinary Guard models. So we're now on Black Crusade 12 Part 1. We thought, right, so these next three, it's Black Legion versus Rolling Thunder, then Black Legion versus Astra Militarum, then Black Legion versus Rolling Thunder. Now that is key, because what we were thinking of having the Black Legion assaulting the fortress with Rolling Thunder as its sort of behind the wall, and having some tanks come out to attack and defend the fortress. Then we thought, well, underneath the fortress we'll have a Zone Mortalis game for the Part 2, where the Black Legion are assaulting Astra Militarum troops and things in a Zone Mortalis style, so almost the fortress is being attacked on land above and below ground. And then the third part would be essentially the Black Legion overthrowing this fortress and defeating Rolling Thunder, maybe. I say defeating, and I talk as though the games are already written and the outcomes are decided. It's not necessarily that. It's just more, if that happens, that's one of the coolest things that we're sort of thinking the best case outcome. So then Rolling Thunder would be obliterated, and the fortress would be opened up and decimated by the Black Legion for Black Crusade number 12, because I do believe it was on Cadia as well, so I think that would fit lore-wise, but I'm not 100% certain, so don't fact-check me on that. So after the Black Crusade section is done, and that's, again, like I mentioned earlier, perhaps going to be more for the YouTube way of working, of having the sort of this whole timeline as a list of videos in order. Having the Black Legion section might make it a little bit better and easier for folks to either jump in and out of whichever order they want, so we can have that. We're then jumping to the War of the Beast. Again, this is another reason why I've kept it ambiguous for Imperium and Orcs. We don't know what we're going to use, we don't know how big it's going to be. We're at mission 53 so far out of I think it's 110, so we're not even halfway yet, and we don't know exactly what will be featured here, what we'll feel up to at the time, so I've kept it ambiguous. We then thought Custodes versus Orcs, get some use out of the Emperor's champions, or the Emperor's bodyguards, the best of the best, the best Imperium force by far, versus Orcs. We thought that'd be a really cool mashup to do. There's also that story of like the Custodes that takes on 100 Orcs at a time, and something like that would just be absolutely amazing to show on the battlefield. And then for part 3, back to Imperium versus Orcs, whether it's got Titans, whether it's got Stompers, whether it's got Gargants, we'll have to have a look what we feel like at the time. Then we're going to the Macarian Crusade, so Astra Militarum versus Eldar. We're using books that we've got from 7th edition as resource material to just find two armies that would be battling each other, not necessarily lore accurate in the sense of reasoning, just the two armies, and we're going to, nearer the time, research into what battle it was and what it meant for the wider picture. We're then jumping into the Age of Apostasy a little bit. We're going to have some sort of, like things that are happening on Terra. Maybe Sisters of Battle have found a Chaos Cult in a hive city or something on Terra or on a planet, where they then have to go in and eradicate the Chaos Cult. Adeptus Arbites, we've got very nice models for those now versus heretics. We've got traitor guardsmen and things, and we could do a smaller game with this, 10 models aside or something, or 10 Arbites. It jumps between which way to pronounce that. But versus traitor guardsmen, maybe we have like waves of traitor guardsmen coming in or something. That might be quite fun. Next, we then thought Black Templars versus Chaos Cults. Very similar reasoning for the Sisters of Battle versus Chaos Cults. Having it so, they're waging a relentless war against Chaos, and they find a Chaos Cult sect that they then have to, eradicate and remove. We're then jumping into the Badab War. So we've got Space Marines versus Renegade Space Marines. Again, kept it ambiguous to decide what armies to use at the time, and what we feel like using. Whether or not Minion has changed his lists or decided on other models. He's got a Word Bearer's army for 40k, so there is the potential of him using that as well. Zethron Purge, we've then got Mechanicus versus Necrons, another mashup that's a classic mashup. We want to have something that's robots versus robots. That would be really cool to have on the tabletop. Plague of Gathalamor, so we've got Astra Militarum versus Death Guard. The Death Guard are assaulting a world and causing a plague. Astra Militarum are falling to chaos because they're not strong enough to withstand the plague, but maybe the tank company can pull it through based on the fact that we've got so many of the Bane Blades. I think at the last count, I think it's 5 Bane Blades we've got in the collection, and 3 Shadow Swords. So yeah, we've got quite a lot of the super heavy tanks. We're now jumping into the Tyrannic Wars. So we are thinking of having Tyranids versus Ultramarines for one of them. The next one would then be perhaps Tyranids versus Eldar and Humanity. And then this next, I think, is it the next one? Yes, so right, this is the next one, and this is based on a story that Minion told me the last time I saw him, actually. That part of the Tyrannic War was Tyranids versus Blood Angels, and the Blood Angels were just being absolutely decimated. They were being massacred by the thousands, or, not thousands, because chapter size and all that, but they were just being massacred. And apparently Khorne saw all the Blood Angel blood being spilled, and was furious that it wasn't the Khorne demons that were doing it, and it was his right or something to kill Blood Angels. So he sends in his demons. So we had then is that the wrong way around? Okay, I've got it on a different way around on my notes. Of course there would be an error here. Blood Angels versus Khorne demons. No, okay. Yeah, so we then we were thinking of then having the Khorne demons arriving on the planet and being sent by Khorne to fight against the Blood Angels, because it's their right to kill Blood Angels and not the Tyranids. But while this is happening, the Blood Angels are still being attacked by Tyranids, and that angers Khorne. So the Khorne demons end up fighting essentially a blurred line against the Tyranids with the Blood Angels. So we thought it'd be quite a fun way to do it, and I wasn't aware of this bit of lore until Minion told me the last time I saw him. So I thought it'd be quite fun to have that as a little game where to finish off the Tyrannic War. Next, we jump into the Tauros campaign, very well-known campaign, Tau versus Astra Militarum. It was a very good campaign in 7th edition. The books, that I think it was the Kayun book that came out with that in, because it sort of brought in the super heavies with the nice new layout of profile pages. I remember having, I've still got that book, but remember opening it for the first time and seeing the pictures of them and thinking, yay, we're into the new style for Astra Militarum models. Then we've got the Damocles Gulf Crusade, again another classic matchup, a Tau versus Mechanicus. There is a board at Warhammer World, a display board in the exhibition with Tau versus Mechanicus, a really cool board. Something like that would be cool to recreate. We then have the Zeist campaign, so Tau versus Ultramarines. Thought this would be a really cool matchup to have. Wanted to have something that will, be a classic combo. We like Tau. Oh, I like Tau. Jarl always says I am a Xenos sympathizer, but Tau versus Ultramarines, a classic matchup. The Imperium poster boys versus Tau, which are perhaps a little bit overpowered in 7th edition, but we'll still have a lot of fun. Now we're going to jump into the Outer Reaches Wars. This is more designed so that we can have use out of a bit more of the Xenos stuff that we've got in the collections. So I'm not going to spend too much time looking into lore as to, this is this exact battle. It's just happening on the outer reaches of the galaxy. So we've got Tau versus Orcs, Tau versus Votan, Tyranids versus Orcs, Tau versus Tyranids, and Tau versus Eldar. Just some classic matchups with armies that we've got that I think will be a lot of fun. This might expand out. We might do some more little games in between, just to have some more Outer Reaches Wars, but at the moment those are the 5 that we've got planned. We then have a classic campaign mission style with Veildor, Eldar versus Tyranids. I'm in two minds whether I want to do Eandon Eldar. I know that was the Wraith. That was the correct army for the Eldar. It was Eandon versus versus Tyranids, and to be honest, I don't know if I would want to paint all that yellow after painting an Imperial Fists army. I've got sort of 6,000 points of Imperial Fists that, I've got a lot of yellow paint on, and it does break you after a little while, so we'll see. If not, it will be Ulthwé versus Tyranids, but you might just have to pretend that they're yellow for this one game. Next, Scytheron Anomaly, Tau versus Dark Mechanicum. This is in hopes that there is Dark Mechanicum models coming. Like I say, some of these games will take place in sort of 4, 5, 6 years time, so this will hopefully give them time to release those. Then we're jumping into the Sabbat worlds, so Gaunt's Ghost versus a Chaos Warband. We thought that'd be really cool given that there's the Gaunt's Ghost models. We thought, get those built and painted, and then we can play a little kill team style game with them. Sabbat Worlds Part 2, Astra Militarum versus Wordbearers, pretty self-explanatory, Chaos versus the Imperium. The Siege of Rax, wanted that to be included because that's a cool campaign that takes place. So Death Corps of Krieg versus Nurgle Demons, especially with the new Death Corps of Krieg models being so nice in plastic. So we've got some of them anyway in the studio. We've got Nurgle Demons as well, so why not get use out of them? Now we're on to Armageddon. So Armageddon Part 1. We've got Orcs versus World Eaters. Just thought it'd be, part of the Armageddon story. It's a very well-known story, and I think Angron is there, so it'd be nice to have the World Eaters fighting with Angron against the Orcs to see who truly is the best at being angry. Then we have Orcs versus Astra Militarum, because, pretty self-explanatory if you know the lore in the background. I know that the Astra Militarum were there and, defending Armageddon. Orcs versus Demons, part of the demonic incursion of Armageddon. So we thought, let's go back to another classic mashup. Then we thought of the Grey Knights fighting the demons and how that then impacted Armageddon's future, with the fact that we've got Angron and Khorne demons attacking the planet, and we thought Grey Knights would be quite fun. So let's pull away from the Orcs for a game. But then let's go back and have a whole big, huge game where it's Orcs versus World Eaters and Khorne Demons versus Grey Knights as well. Have like a 1v1v1, because I know that the Jarl has some World Eaters. I also have some World Eaters, but the Jarl has Khorne Demons coming out of boxes that I'm sure he doesn't realise he's got Khorne Demons in. He's got plenty of those, so I thought it'd be a really cool way for us to have a 1v1v1 game. That's the end of Armageddon, so now we're jumping into Warzone Fenris, because we've got the Wrath of Magnus book and the Curse of the Wolfen book, so it'd be nice to do some campaigns from that. So Space Wolves versus Thousand Suns, a classic matchup, whether or not it's on Prospero or on Fenris, I can't remember, but it'd be really cool to do. Then Space Wolves versus Grey Knights. Now that is two Imperium armies, but we thought, the Curse of the Wolfen, it might be cool to do some Wolfen versus Grey Knights. The Grey Knights are there fighting this sort of cursed space marine gene seed that's started cropping up with the Wolfen, so we thought that would be quite a cool one to have. Then we'll jump back to classic good versus bad, Space Wolves versus Tzeentch Demons, building it back into the lore of the Warzone Fenris area. And then I think, is this the final? No, we've got one more after this. Okay, but yeah, so it's the last one with the Space Wolves in. Space Wolves versus Thousand Suns for Warzone Fenris. And then finally, Custodes and Grey Knights versus Tzeentch Demons. Any excuse to get the Custodes and Grey Knights out together. This was two of my favourite armies that I painted a while ago now, but I still like, that I've got a fully painted army of them all just sort of sitting there ready to be used. And then Tzeentch Demons, you can't have the Thousand Suns being around and not have Tzeentch Demons playing a huge part. And I'm really pleased with my Lord of Change and my Kairos Fate Weaver models, because I painted them the week that contrast paints came out, and I thought I'll just try it on those, and I wet blended the wings, and I was very pleased with how they look. So any excuse to use those. So we're now on to the Black Crusade 13. This is split into 5 different parts. I'll go through each part so that you know what we're thinking. So my understanding of the story is the Black Crusade 13, Abaddon attacks Cadia. He has the full might of the Black Legion. He also has a Blackstone Fortress in his arsenal, and he attacks Cadia, and Cadia defends itself semi-good until they make planetfall, and then things start to crumble. So the Necrons end up coming to the aid of Cadia, because I think, is it Trazyn the Infinite, and knows exactly what's at stake should the Black Legion fail. Should Cadia fall and the Black Legion be successful. So the Necrons and Cadians fighting against the Black Legion I thought would be really cool. We then thought, let's get the Ultramarines involved as well, because I do believe Space Marines come to aid Cadia, so we'll have some Ultramarine pockets there where they're helping fighting against the Black Legion. Then we'll have Cadia and Ultramarines together fighting against the Black Legion, and then for the final part, if you can guess what it is, you've been paying attention all the way through, Black Legion versus Imperium. Again, purposefully ambiguous, because we'll decide nearer the time how big, what we're wanting, things like that. Maybe a Warlord Titan or 2 or 3 would be really cool to use there. That's the end of the Black Crusade 13. So that's the end of the Black Crusades as the lore is written at the moment. We then jump into 4 missions that are happening before the Gathering Storm, sort of setting up the Gathering Storm is what I was thinking. We've got Imperial Agents versus Chaos Demons. Throughout the galaxy, Imperial Agents are hunting Chaos Demons all the time, so it'd be a really cool little classic matchup to have. The Awakened Tomb, so Imperium and Tau fighting against Necrons. We thought that would be a really cool one to have. Silence Before the Storm, Custodes and Eldar versus Tzeentch Demons. A little bit of a different matchup, but maybe the Eldar have foreseen things and Tzeentch Demons are, overpowering a planet or overpowering certain aspects of the galaxy, and the Custodes are already fighting, the Eldar come to help the Custodes. And then next we've got Breaking of the Veil, Humanity and Eldar versus Chaos. Again, ambiguous on purpose, so we'll see what we feel like nearer the time. Now we jump into the final part of the campaign that's been written, the Order of the Gaming. We are on Mission 100. This is on purpose. The Gathering Storm, Part 1, Fall of Cadia, Part 1. So The Gathering Storm, Fall of Cadia, Part 1. Imperium versus Black Legion. We've got the Gathering Storm books to use, so we're going to go through and we're going to make this into a truly epic penultimate sort of part of the campaign where it's setting up Era Indomitus very nicely. We then have Sisters of Battle versus Black Legion. We've got the new Saint Celestine model that will be really nice to use for this part, so we've got to include that. And then Grey Knights versus Black Legion. We don't have Grandmaster Voldus just yet. That's part of the Gathering Storm Part 3, Rise of the Primarch, but we thought, have the Grey Knights feature in preparation for that. Next we have the Fracture of Bealtan Part 1, Dark Eldar versus Tyranids. This was pulled out of the Black Legion story, the Fracture of Bealtan story, where there is Dark Eldar versus Tyranids, so we thought we'll include that. Then we have Eldari versus Demons, because they are coming together under one banner at this point. I thought Eldari, the name for them came out in 8th edition, but it didn't. It actually got mentioned in the Gathering Storm, so that's why we're going to call them that. Versus Demons, it's classics, the Fracture of Bealtan. There's definitely demonic incursions happening here. And then finally, Ynnari versus Thousand Suns as the part... Oh, this is supposed to be part 3. That is an error on the screen there. I wondered if I would spot any of those. So we've got one there. Ynnari versus Thousand Suns. We've got Magnus in his full glory. So let's have him attacking with the Fracture of Bealtan with the Ynnari coming together, and the Soul Burst actions and things like that will be taken part because of the rules that were written for those as well. And then we have the final part of the campaign. We have the Rise of the Primarch Part 1. This is actually split into 5 parts. So let's go through each of these individually. We want Ultramarines versus Black Legion. It's just a classic matchup. We've got things like Calgar, Sicarius. We've got obviously Gulliman coming, but perhaps not yet. I'll have a look into the stories to see when exactly he arrives. So maybe he might be featured in this game, maybe not. Next, we then have Grey Knights with Grandmaster Voldus versus Demons. A classic matchup, definitely has to be done. We then have Ultramarines versus Chaos, purposefully ambiguous again. We've got Chaos Reaver, we've got a couple of Chaos Warhounds, they could maybe be featured as well. We'll see how we're feeling nearer the time. Ultramarines and Custodes versus the Black Legion. At this point, definitely Gulliman will be there, so will the Custodes, so, versus Black Legion. Ambiguous and epic is what I'm thinking. And then finally, Imperium versus Chaos to round off the entire saga. Okay, hopefully this will be a massive game. We will be writing the ideas that we have for Era Indomitus soon, but at the moment that is the plan of the 110 missions that we've got for the next few years of strategic painting gaming. So please do, if you've made it this far, a huge thank you to you. I truly appreciate it. I've been sat in front of this microphone. There's been a couple of areas that I've had to cut here and there from having a coughing fit. As you can probably tell, I'm full of cold. So I do appreciate you making it this far in the video, because I assume it wasn't easy, but this has been a really cool creative outlet for me to just talk about what Minion and I are planning, with the Jarl jumping in here and there as well. So thank you so much for listening. I really do, from the bottom of my heart, it means the world that you're listening to me right now. So thank you ever so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one. But until there, take care. Bye bye.